I'd like to call tonight's meeting of the Lower McConchy Township Board of Commissioners to order. If we could all please stand for a pledge of allegiance to the flag.
Pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Thank you very much. Prior to the start of this meeting, I'd like to make an exciting announcement. We'd like to extend congratulations to the family of Vice President Rich Ward on their new family addition. Rich is now a grandfather, so we're congratulate him. And they say it's better than being a parent because you can give them back when you're done. So that's a good thing. So that's why Rich is absent tonight, but we wish all of the family well. Everybody else who is supposed to be here is here, with the exception of Mark Fisher is our substitute solicitor this evening, as Mr. Bruman is not in attendance. There are no agenda modifications tonight. Under item 5, announcements and presentations, we have 5.1, audit report for 2023. Dale Umbenhauer from, is it Malley, or is here to present. So, Dale, the floor is yours.
I went through and handed out the documents. There's 2 documents that I'm going to go over. The first one I'm going to go over.
Just pull that really close.
Financial statements.
There you go.
There we go. The first thing I'm going to point out is on page 3, and that's our opinion. So the opinion is the very first 2 paragraphs. And what that says is that in our opinion, in all material respects, the financial statements are fairly presented. It goes on to discuss management's responsibility for the financial statements and then the auditor's responsibility for the audit. Then we're going to go over to page 11, and this is our statement of net position. So this is the township's balance sheet, and it's broken down between governmental activities and business type activities. This is what's called full accrual method, so it includes all the long-term assets and long-term liabilities as well. Our total assets for the governmental activities was $112,502,646, and that was broken up by $9,349,678 of cash and cash equivalents, $15,980,014 of investments, about $100,000 of taxes receivable, and then some accounts receivable of $1.5 million. Lease receivables related to the adoption of GASB 87 in the prior year, $331,000. Prepaid expenses of $20,000, and then we have our capital assets, net of accumulated depreciation. We had some deferred outflows of resources related to the OPEB plan of $92,724, and then we have liabilities broken down between current and long-term. So our accounts payable and accrued expenses were $2,025,121. We had some unearned revenues, traffic impact fees of $1,374,967, unearned revenues related to recreation fees of $674,712, and then some accrued interest on the long-term debt of $44,184. Our current portion of the notes payable due was $2,022,000. The long-term portion was $6,924,000. Our compensated absences liability was $446,396. And the total OPEB liability was $1,040,734. We also had some deferred inflows of resources related to the OPEB leases of a total of $509,852. That left us with net position invested in capital assets of $76,298,941. Restricted net position of $3,298,692 and unrestricted net position of $17,935,771. On the business type activities, the total assets were $26,582,518, broken down by cash of $1.4 million, investments of $7.4 million, accounts receivable of $1.5 million, machinery and equipment, sewer collection system, and accumulated depreciation. Then we have the liability section where we have accounts payable and accrued expenses of $1,104,932 and some compensated absences liability of $30,776, which leaves us with net investment in capital assets of $16,374,148 and an unrestricted portion of $9,072,662. The next page is the income statement for the township. Again, this is on the full accrual method. So this includes things like depreciation expense, OPEB expenses, and the changes in the OPEB liability. So this is broken down between the primary government at the top and the business type activities at the bottom. It's the expenses are on the left, and then it goes to the right with the revenues. So we had total governmental activities expenses of $18,193,770, and that was offset by charges for services of $5,089,404, operating grants and contributions of $5,137,464, and capital grants and contributions of $769,999. That left a net expense of $7,196,903. That's the amount that would have to be made up by your general revenues. General revenues, as noted below, were $14,948,378, giving a positive change in net position for the year of $7,751,475. On the business type activities, our total expenses were $4,461,037. We had charges for services of $5,132,206, leaving us a positive revenue change of $671,169, coupled with some investment income of $420,662, gave us a positive change in net position for the year of $1,091,831. Next is the governmental funds balance sheet. And this is broken down by the fund level. So where we just previously looked at the governmental activities column, this is what all combines to make up that governmental activities column. So the general fund is the township's main operating fund. That had total assets of $18,190,348, total liabilities of $422,602, some deferred inflows related to the leases of $306,172, gave us total fund balance of $17,461,574, broken down between a non-spendable portion related to prepaid expenses of $19,561, the assigned portion of $14,783,252, and then the unassigned available portion, $2,658,761. The American Rescue Plan Fund was liquidated in the current year, so this is all zeros. The Capital Projects Fund had total assets of $3,689,018, total liabilities of $1,594,807, leaving us with committed fund balance of $304,000, assigned fund balance of $1,790,211 for a total fund balance of $2,094,211. The Developer Fee Fund had total assets of $2,676,351, total liabilities of $2,049,679, leaving restricted fund balance of $626,672. The Liquid Fuels Fund had total assets of $1,388,994, liabilities of $7,712, leaving us with a restricted fund balance of $1,381,282. The Open Space Fund had total assets of $1,290,738, all of which was restricted for open space. The Debt Service Fund had total assets of $22,256,000, all of which is committed for debt service. The next page in the statements is just a reconciliation that goes from the schedule we just looked at to the first schedule that included all of the long-term assets and liabilities. The next schedule is the governmental funds income statement. The general fund had total revenues of $16,943,772, total expenditures of $13,521,608, transfers in of $1,015,000, giving us a positive change in fund balance for the year of $4,437,164. The American Rescue Plan Fund had total revenues of $3,432,455 and transfers out of $3,432,455, giving us a change in fund balance of 0. The Capital Projects Fund had total revenues of $1,446,597. Total expenditures of $3,924,960. Other financing uses of $2,224,163, giving us a positive change in fund balance for the year of $445,800. The Developer Fee Fund had total revenues of $913,912 and transfers out of $767,500, giving us a positive change in fund balance for the year of $146,412. The Liquid Fuels Fund had revenues of $1,650,590. Total expenditures of $635,086, giving us a positive change of $371,504. Adding some proceeds from the sale of capital assets of $12,000 gives us a positive change for the year of $383,504. The Open Space Fund had total revenues of $2,123,600. Total expenditures of $2,646. Other financing uses of $1,163,600, giving us a positive change in fund balance for the year of $957,354. The Debt Service Fund had $411 of revenues, $2,113,558 of expenditures, and $2,113,700 of transfers in, giving us a positive change in fund balance for the year of $553. The next schedule, again, is just a reconciliation that gets from the one we just looked at to the one that includes all the long-term assets and liabilities. The next few schedules are the Sewer Fund. I've already gone over this information as part of the business type activities. So I'm going to go over to page 20, which is the fiduciary funds. This is broken down between the custodial fund and the pension trust fund. The custodial fund had total assets of $2,182,082, total liabilities of $179,107, leaving net position restricted for custodial purposes of $2,002,975. The pension trust fund had total assets of $9,935,521, all of which was restricted for pensions. The next schedule shows the changes in fiduciary net position for the fiduciary funds. The custodial fund had total additions of $1,367,137. We had developer escrow expenses of $1,532,038, giving us a negative change in net position for the year of $164,901. In the pension trust fund, we had total additions of $497,986, total investment income of $1,304,347, deductions of $131,491, giving us a positive change in net position for the year of $1,670,842. I want to point out on page 32, this is the deposit and investments footnote of the township. It lists all the cash deposits, the certificate of deposits and investments, and presents it all there for a total of $46,111,365. On page 36 is the capital assets footnote. In the current year, we had some activity relating to the sale of land to the Turnpike. And we had some significant park improvements, sewer improvements, and vehicle additions. And that leaves us with capital assets net of $85,244,941 on the governmental activities. So then the next page lists the business type activities. And there we have net capital assets of $16,374,148. The next thing I want to point out is on page 39, note 9, the fund balance. So if you remember when I was going over the fund financial statements, I noted things as being committed or assigned or restricted. So in those instances, this is the footnote that describes what those things are restricted, committed, and assigned for. Next is page 46, and this is just the roll forward of the OPEB liability. So balance at December 31st, 2022 was $939,232. After the service cost and interest for the current year and some changes for experience and assumptions, netting out the benefit payments, it leaves us with a balance at the end of the year of $1,040,734. And it's important to note that this liability no longer includes the office workers. The next thing is on page 50, and this is the budgetary comparison schedule for the general fund. Shows the original and final budgets compared to the actual amounts. So we've budgeted final revenues of $14,992,575, and the actual amounts came in at $16,943,772 for a positive budget variance of $1,951,197. The expenditures we budgeted $15,272,575. They came in at $13,521,608 for a positive budget variance of $1,750,967. We originally budgeted for a deficiency of revenues over expenditures that was going to be made up by a transfer in from reserves of $280,000. We ended up having a transfer in of $1,015,000. So that gave us a positive change of $4,437,164 for the year. That's all I have for the presentation. Are there any questions on the financial statements?
Any questions from the board?
Okay, one question I had was associated with the sewer fund.
Yes.
And every year we've been going through and putting like $1 million in lining of sewer lines. And that's been through the capital projects fund. Should the accounting for that change any now that we have the capital or have the sewer fund?
Well, it would depend where the asset's going to be recorded. So if
Jeff, do you want to come up and just help out?
Clarify that sewer capital is out of the sewer. So the capital is not out of capital.
Oh, it is. So that $1 million that we're going to spend this year is already in the
sewer fund budget.
in this. Okay. But, well, but I thought the money was coming from the capital projects fund. It's coming from, okay, so what is the source of that $1 million? Okay. Okay. Thank you.
Any other commissioner questions? Dale, thank you very much. As always, extremely thorough and important.
I
So
would like to go over the other letter
Yep.
that I brought with, and only because we've been getting a lot of questions, and I have to go make specific board appearances to talk about this letter. So in the current year, we adopted new auditing standards. So it's Statement on Auditing Standards number 145, and it changed the way we have to do our risk assessment. And one of the things we have to do now is report to the board the risks that we came up with as part of our audit, right? And so you'll see those on page 2 at the top, and it says significant risks identified, right? So as soon as everyone sees that, they think there's something wrong. It's always been there. It's just now we have to make it public.
Mhm.
And it's drawing a lot of confusion. So I just want to reiterate that in no way does this mean that there are any deficiencies in your internal controls that we've come across. If there were, that would be an entirely different letter.
Sure.
So we have risks of management override of internal controls. That is basically because it doesn't matter how good the internal controls are, someone can always override, right?
Mhm.
Someone's at the top. The risk of improper revenue recognition is just related to the timing of recording of the revenue. So because the GASB allows 60 days after year end to record revenues, there's a cutoff issue then after that point. So that creates the revenue recognition risk. The journal entry risk, this was one that we implemented across the board for all of our clients as part of the implementation of the new standard. We did not have any issues with that one as part of the audit, so that one won't be there going forward. That was like, we had that one and the next one as well with related to the leases. So there was a risk that there was lease receivables that weren't being recorded. And that's just a lease receivable that's related to the leases that the township is the lessor in. Right? So we lease buildings and farms and
Mhm.
fields, all that kind of stuff. So it has to go on the balance sheet at some, so that creates a risk for that. But again, we didn't have any issues with that, so that one will be there in the future. But the first two, the management override of internal controls and the improper revenue recognition, those are what's called presumptively mandatory. So in the auditing standards, those two have to be in every audit unless you can document your way out of it. Of course, if you're on a cash basis, financial statements, then that eliminates the revenue recognition risk, right?
Mhm.
Because you record the cash when it comes in the door.
Right.
But the management override of internal controls will always still need. And it's not like we're picking on anyone or saying there's anything wrong. It's just, we have to have these and now we have to show them.
And I
to
would
you.
assume if there was some, I guess, more flagrant issue there, then that note would be a little more detailed.
Well, and the other thing would be, so let's say that I came out and did the audit this year and I had a finding. Definitely did something. Okay, so the next year you would see a significant risk in this letter related to that.
Okay.
Right, because that would have been a significant risk for us the following year. So that we make sure that we address it.
At the time.
Yeah,
Understood
that makes sense.
completely.
All right, are there any other questions?
Any other questions? Gail, thank you very much.
You betcha. Have a
Enjoy
great
the rest of your
night.
day or your
Thank you.
night. Still daylight for a little bit, at least today.
Couple more hours.
Yeah.
Thanks, Dan.
Starting tomorrow, it just gets darker earlier. Okay, moving forward, item 6, hearings and approvals. 6.1, resolution 2024-30, accepting right of way and adopting Sauerkraut Lane Extension and Compost Center Road as public roads.
Me.
Okay. Solicitor Fisher.
Thank you, Mr. President. So this resolution is obviously Sauerkraut Lane Extension has been under construction for some time. It's been in the works for
Ever.
30 years. It's approaching a conclusion. Portions of it are already constructed to base paving. And the township has to put the wearing course on top. This resolution is accepting all outstanding right-of-way that are that relate to the extension and the road that goes back to the compost center from the extension, and adopting those roads as public roads. And this needs to be done now so that the township can do the wearing course paving. You will soon after see another resolution coming down the pike where we actually name the roads and so forth. So this is step, whatever you want to call it, in a very long process approaching the end.
Move to approve.
Okay, we have a motion to approve. Is there a second?
Second.
We have a motion and a second to approve resolution 2024-30. Are there any commissioner comments or questions? Any public comments or questions? Seeing and hearing none, I will call for the vote. All those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Okay. Item 7, public comment on non-agenda topics. Does anybody have public comment on non-agenda topics? Okay. Communication this evening, there is none. Item number 9, appointments to various boards, committees, and commissions. 9.1, resolution 2024-31, confirming appointment of John Parrish to the zoning hearing board.
Yes, Commissioners, you made a motion last meeting to appoint John Parrish to the zoning hearing board, and I mistakenly had it done by a motion, and it's required to be done by resolution. So this confirms it.
Move to approve.
Do we have a motion? Is there a second?
Second.
Motion and a second. Are there any commissioner comments or questions? Any public comments or questions? Seeing and hearing none, I will call for the vote. All those in favor signify by saying aye.
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 Opposed? Very good. Item 10, approval of minutes of previous meeting.
Move to
10.1,
approve.
June 6, 2024. We have a motion. Is there a second?
Second.
We have a motion and a second. Any commissioner comments or questions? Any public comments or questions? Seeing and hearing none, I will call for the vote. All those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Approval of transfers, bill list, and payroll. Mr. Manager.
Thank you. We have the following for your consideration this evening. The general fund, $311,572.94. The solid waste fund, $11,396. The sewer fund, $4,007.58. Capital projects fund, $116,089.73. The open space fund, $825. The payroll, $170,214.19. The developer escrow, $261,132.12. For a total of all funds, $875,237.56.
Move to approve.
You have a motion. Is there a second? Second. Motion and a second to approve the bill list. Any commissioner comments or questions? Any public comments or questions? Seeing and hearing none, I will call for the vote. All those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed? As always, for the public's information, all of our bills can be found on our website for your review. Item 12, departmental matters, engineering, Mr. McAdam.
Thank you, Mr. President. Two items tonight for the board. The first is a recommendation to award the paving contract for the 2024 roadway improvements program. The bid went out. We received 4 bids. The low bid was from the H&K Group in the amount of $366,000, $322.48. The H&K Group, good contractor. We've worked with them before. Bid slightly higher than the budget, but we're recommending award rather of the bid. And this is tied with the Sauerkraut Lane extension and the compost facility road that you just accepted the rights of way for.
Okay.
Move to award.
We have a motion to award. Is there a second?
Second.
Motion and a second to award the bid for the 2024 roadway improvement program. Are there any commissioner comments or questions? Any public comments or questions? Seeing and hearing none, I will call for the vote. All those in favor signify by saying aye. Opposed? Okay, 12.1.2, consideration of bids for multi-municipal manhole maintenance and rehab project.
Yes.
Say that 5 times.
I will not even try. At any rate, yeah, this is a bid that we went out with several other municipalities. The way the bid was, it was broken up by township. The lower Macungie portion came in at $246,725. However, that is roughly almost twice what had been budgeted. And in comparison with similar bids that CKS has gotten in our other municipalities, it's way out of whack. And we're recommending that the bid not be accepted.
Move to not accept the bid.
Okay, we have a motion. Is there a second?
Second.
We have a motion and a second to not accept the bid for the multi-municipal manhole maintenance and rehab project. Are there any commissioner comments or questions? Any public comments or questions?
One question.
Yes, sir.
Are we going to go out again?
Yes, we will coordinate this with Bruce, but my recollection, we have had lots of conversations about this. We will be putting this out to bid. As a matter of fact, in an email today, apparently the materials that were part of this spec that a different engineering firm put together, apparently the materials that they were proposing are different from what we've used in other municipalities. And the bids that we've gotten, I think within weeks maybe, were significantly lower, much closer to our budgeted amounts. So yeah, we will be going out to bid to get this work done. Like I said, I'll coordinate that with Bruce, but I believe that was the game plan.
All right, thank you.
Okay, I'll call for the vote. All those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Okay. Anything else, Mr. McAdam?
Not for tonight, thank you.
Thank you. Any questions for the engineer? Moving on to planning, 12.2.1, resolution 2024-32. Mr. Jones.
Yes, sir. Just a simple security release for Schaefer Run Commons, also known as Hamilton Walk, over off of Route 100 there, 55-plus community currently being built by D.R. Horton. Following review by the township engineer after a submission made by the builder, they're requesting a release of $147,832.59. Their security would have $912,971.63 remaining in the bond for continued public improvements until the project closes out.
Move to approve.
Okay, we have a motion. Is there a second?
Second.
We have a motion and a second to approve Resolution 2024-32. Are there any commissioner comments or questions? Any public comments or questions? Seeing and hearing none, I will call for the vote. All those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Okay. Anything else, Mr. Jones?
Nothing else this evening. Several items for Monday night when we see you again soon.
Okay, any questions for the planner? 12.3 Solicitor Fisher.
Nothing else to report.
Very good. Any questions for the solicitor? 12.4 Township Manager, Mr. Beidle.
Thank you. Just two items for update. The first, there was supposed to be some Norfolk Southern Railroad scheduled maintenance on the Gaiman Road side. We announced that to the public that there might be a closure and a detour while they did that work. We've been notified by the railroad that they're no longer going to be doing that work. So just want everybody to know that that road won't be closed by the railroad. The second thing we have, as always, the update on the solid waste contract. We do have those bids back. We are looking to have a detailed discussion with the board on Monday night at our regular workshop meeting. We will need the board to decide as we move forward what the options will be for the contract. So we look forward to getting some good insight and hopefully we've heard from the public too with some emails and things of that nature, and hear about the process. So we do, and we have seen there will be a rate increase. As soon as we review the items Monday, that will set how high or significant that rate increase may be. So a lot of things to talk about Monday, but always like to give an update that we're still continuing. We have to have the board consider awarding a contract at the July 18th meeting so that we are prepared to start into the new contract September 1st. So want everybody to be updated. That's all I have unless there's questions.
Thank you. Any questions for the Township Manager? Okay, thank you. Item 13, other business. Is there any old business this evening? Any new business this evening? Board of Commissioner reports. The next board workshop is this coming Monday, June 24th at 6 p.m. The next board regular meeting or business meeting is July 18th, 2024 at 6 p.m. There is no meeting the first Thursday in July. Do we need an executive session tonight or not?
No, Monday we will have them.
Okay. There is no executive session after this meeting. So with that, we are adjourned. Yeah, that's not fair.